This is my type it out, but somebody else has been playing with it. So not everything is quite what I want, but I know I can do a premolar prep on this first premolar here. This one I already worked on. See that? So as far as the occlusal reduction is concerned, you know, for posterior teeth, we have 3 sets of contacts. We have A contacts, we have B contacts, and we have C contacts. And when I reduce each of those planes to reduce each of those contacts, I personally refer to them as the A plane, the B plane, and the C plane. Okay? Now, that tells us something about the vertical angulation of each of those planes. But notice that I'm making a flat plane here and a flat plane here, and see the ridge in between? So from mesial to distal on this plane right here, which is reducing the A contact, I've shifted the ridge way over here to the distal. It might have started out here, but I moved it. Why did I move it? Because the opposing teeth are here. This ridge, I want it to fit between the 2 opposing teeth, right in here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on the B plane. I'm going to shift the ridge on the B plane to the distal, so it fits between the 2 opposing teeth, so I'm getting a more uniform clearance. I want to get the same clearance on one side of the ridge as I do on the other side of the ridge. Okay, so I want uniform clearance as much as I can, so I'm going to feel free to shift the ridges by changing how big I make each of these planes so they do these reduction areas. So the A plane and the B plane have ridges and flat planes. The C plane is rounded around here on the upper arch. Again, this is the functional cusp on the upper arch. There's a triangular ridge on one side of the functional cusp, and it's a nice rounded surface on the other. All right? Okay. But we're going to shift the anatomy to fit the opposing teeth. Let me see. I should have brought one of my burrs in, but I'm going to steal yours. So I'm going to do number 12, very much like I'm showing you for number 5. But by the way, notice that on number 5 here, I started the axial reduction. Okay? I just did the mesial buccal side of it. But once I've done the occlusal reduction, and I'm happy with the anatomy, and I'm happy with my clearances, then I'm going to do the facial reduction. And how do I do the facial reduction? 3 depth cuts, join together, angle the shoulder. Always the same. Whether it's a posterior tooth, whether it's a molar or a premolar or an anterior tooth, 3 depth cuts, join together, angle the shoulder. So I'm just showing how this works out over here. Take the taper from the middle third of the adjacent tooth, just like we've done before. Take the secondary plane from the occlusal third of the adjacent tooth, just like we've done before. Okay? The facial cusp on a premolar, when I finish this prep and do the whole facial reduction around through the distal side, the cusp height, the facial cusp is going to be about this tall right here. It won't be up here anymore, it'll be here. So we do the occlusal reduction on the A plane, we do the facial reduction, the secondary plane, put a little bevel over here, and then we check to see if we've reduced the facial cusp 2 millimeters compared to the adjacent teeth. We have. Just like we reduce the canine and the central 2 millimeters to fit the adjacent teeth. Okay. Please don't look at these preps. I don't know who did those. Okay, so let me do the occlusal reduction over here. 3 planes, A, B, and C. So notice that this premolar, I need to shift this ridge to the distal, don't I? Yeah. So I'm going to start by doing the A plane of reduction. I reduce down this way, come all the way down to the marginal ridge, flat plane all the way down to the marginal ridge, then a flat plane here. Reduce all the way down as close as you can to the adjacent tooth. Flat plane here, keep the end of the burr in the central groove. Flat plane over here, end of the burr in the central groove. And I'm going to shift that ridge so it fits into the opposing tooth, just like this. Then we do the same thing on the B plane. So now I have a different vertical angle. Start reducing all the way down here to the mesial margin ridge, long plane to the mesial, short plane to the distal. And that's more likely to have that ridge fit between the two opposing teeth. And then I'm more likely to have the same clearance on both sides of that ridge, which is what I'm looking for. So you can get pretty close now. Then the C-plane comes around like this, maybe a 45-degree angle, gingerly like this, and then it comes around the corner into the embrasures at a 45-degree angle there and over here. Okay, so now we got a pretty good start. I probably want to reduce a little more down here. On the B plane, reducing the B contact here, we're going to reduce it until we get the clearance that we want. On the A plane, we're going to reduce, get a good start anyway, and we're not as concerned about clearance. We're more concerned about reduction. We won't be able to evaluate the final reduction until after we finish the facial reduction, just like I was talking about over here. See, once I do the facial reduction, this cusp comes down to here. Okay? All right, so let's see how things are fitting the opposing tooth. Yeah. So we want about 1.5 millimeters of clearance on this plane here and on this plane here, and all the way around the C plane. 1.5 millimeters of clearance. So we make sure we get the anatomy appropriate, make sure we fit the opposing tooth, and then we can sort of look through there and get an idea. If I take the 1 millimeter ball burnisher and put it in there, it should fit with a fair amount of extra room, on both sides of that ridge. Okay, so that's the occlusal reduction, and again, facial reduction. Take the taper from the adjacent tooth, millimeter above the gingiva until we get a millimeter shoulder, just like we've been doing so far today. So there's the depth cut. Put another one over here. Lean toward the axis, push toward the axis, millimeter above the gingiva. Same thing over here. Close to the adjacent tooth, lean it toward the axis, push it toward the axis, a millimeter above the gingiva. And make sure that at the bottom we have a millimeter shoulder in each of those depth cuts. Then when we connect them together, we'll be okay. Use this same taper when we're connecting together in between. So I'm doing basically the same thing as I showed on the other side of the arch. So 3 depth cuts joined together, and then we angle the shoulder. Don't angle it too steeply. And again, how do we know we've got an angled shoulder? Right. If it slides off, we're good. So we're good. Okay? Just the same way we check for a chamfer. If it slides off, we're good. If it doesn't slide off, ski jump. Okay, so then we can do, we got the face reduction done at this taper here. Secondary plane at this angle here. Facial cusp bevel right here. Now let's check the cusp here. And compared to the adjacent teeth, that's pretty close to 2 millimeters reduction. Maybe we could do a little bit more. If we need a little bit more, then we can do some more on the A plane. Then re-bevel it. Now, of course, if I got rid of the excess over here, this would be the height of the entire cusp. But that's about 2 millimeters reduced compared to the adjacent teeth. And so you just do the distal side exactly the way I did the mesial side. Then do the chamfer as usual. Lingually, you can do a little bit by direct vision. And then when you're coming around the corners, you better use the mirror so you can see where you are relative to the adjacent teeth and the gingiva and the taper and everything like that. Okay? just like we've been doing. All right, so that's the deal on the premolars, so nothing much new other than the occlusal reduction. And to make sure you have 2 millimeters reduction in the facial cusp, just like we've been doing on the centrals and the canines.